this. I have never seen such a shallow attempt to make a political statement in my life, especially not from the side that I agree with. When it comes to a show like Our Cartoon President, it's impossible to keep politics out of it because it's inherently political. But because it aligns with my feelings for the current president, being negative, it's a whole lot easier than it sounds to focus on this from purely a writing standpoint. And to put it short, this fucking show didn't even try. So what is Our Cartoon President? Our Cartoon President is a show written by political satirician Stephen Colbert, the host of The Colbert Report, which is apparently a news parody show on Comedy Central. I've never seen the show myself, so I have no prior knowledge to this guy's brand of humor, but given the guy plays a characterized conservative on the show, I can only assume he's normally better than this, or at the very least more tolerable, as he's got a lot more to work off of being able to parody a wide range of conservative views. Which already brings me to my biggest problem with Our Cartoon President. You mean to tell me that you're going to try to parody one guy's views? A guy who's already a parody of a president. Donald Trump or no, there's only so much mileage you could get out of this. It could work for a short segment on a talk show like Our Cartoon President started out as, but you're expecting this to fill 26 minutes of hard-hitting jokes at possibly the worst president America has ever seen. I hope you don't like sticking around. I remember the last Cartoon President. That lasted 14 episodes, and maybe one day I'll have a look back at that to see if I can draw parallels here. When you try to parody a parody, what are you actually making a joke on? You're literally trying to make fun of an I'm with stupid shirt with an arrow pointing up. I suppose I'm stalling a bit much here, so what do we actually have in store for ourselves? What is this inside look at Trump's life actively going to give us? Buckle up. It's going to be bumpy. We start on a speech from Donald Trump, played by Jeff Bergman, and if I had to give this show anything at all, is that Bergman actually does a pretty good job at playing Trump. Like, really, the voice isn't spot on per se, but it's pretty damn close. If I knew nothing about the show and you had told me that Trump was actually doing the voice here to self-parody himself, I probably would have believed you. So, I mean, you get that. I just wish the writing and jokes were better. Seriously, within the first almost 2 minutes of the show, we have every joke that gets told. He doesn't like Mexicans. He's got a huge ego about himself. He's totally unprofessional as a president. He's a total imbecile. He's completely out of shape. He's a pervert. He only got in because of morbid curiosity, when that wasn't at all how he got in, but details. This is the rest of the episode as far as I care, because that's the only jokes that really ever get told, at least about Trump. But I'll get into some of the other jokes later down the line. The main ideology is this. So when we get into the actual meat of the episode, we start with Trump flipping through the news stations, calling them all fake news. Hey guys, did you know that Trump does that thing? You know, that thing where he calls negative stories about him fake? You know, that one time where he called Fox a reliable source? Hey, did you hear? Speaking of Fox News, he gets to it only to hear the news anchors kissing ass before explaining that Trump has to do this State of the Union speech on the same day as his anniversary day. And then they make a joke about Trump's divorces. You know, it helps if you space out your joke material, Colbert. You should know how this works. You did a 22-minute show before. Then you got a chance to do The Late Show, which is a 45-minute show. If you use up all of your material now, it's not going to be funny the next 100 or so times you tell these jokes. Your opening was hinting at making this show more than one season, but you can't do that if you use up all of your material from the gate. They go on to a board meeting where we meet several other politicians, each one note and blander than the actual politicians, go figure, as they talk about Trump's low approval rating. But treat it as if it's a good thing, and then recap Fox to hear that one of the talking heads gave Trump a 9 out of 10, which causes them all to flip their shit. I'm already running out of ways to address the comedy in this show, so I'll go ahead and address the other characters in the board meeting and explain what the problem with them are. There's nothing here for your audience to laugh at. We catch the joke early that everyone here is a yes man, but outside of that, they're all just varying levels of this interpretation of Trump. They'll make sexual jokes to match Trump. They'll be stupid because Republican. The only actual character in the room is this general-looking guy whose name completely slips my mind, as his name never gets said once, and I don't pay enough of close attention to politics to give a fuck about anyone but Trump. And maybe Pence. Now, Mr. Military Man, while he's still a yes man, he's not just Trump again. When you only spend time on one character and leaving the rest of your characters feeling like the main character, that's a problem. That is very much a problem. Seriously, especially when you're trying to satirize politics in this way, because at the end of the day, your jokes aren't their beliefs, it's how they talk and how they look. Anyway, Trump goes to Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump to tell them to stay out of trouble, and... well, let me talk about these two for a bit. Do you remember Beavis and Butthead? For those who don't, Beavis and Butthead was a show that aired on MTV from 1993 to 1997, with a very short-lived revival in 2011. It was a show about two teenage delinquents who loved metal music and are completely socially incompetent. Generally, it was a raunchy slice of life about two people who could barely scrape by with two brain cells to rub together. Well, Don and Eric are basically Beavis and Butthead, but dumber. Because we have to treat the entire Trump line as if they're socially inept retards who look dumber than Trump in comparison. Yes, this includes the vapid wife. She's only a smidgen better than Trump in intelligence, but somehow is the most needy bitch on the show. I know why you're out to villainize our politics. I understand that the politosphere is completely dirty beyond belief and politics are not in a good state for liberals. But if that's your only motivation for this series, stop while you're behind, because that's propaganda. Trump decides that the best method of raising his approval rating is by going to war. Stop. Oh my god, you cannot be this bad at writing. You mean to tell me the best method of satirizing Trump is by making him so fucking retarded that his only method of raising his approval that, by the way, you established he doesn't care about, is to go to war? The thing that single-handedly ruins presidents' approval ratings. I don't care how many times he's threatened to go to war with North Korea, he's doing it as a dick-measuring contest with Kim Jong-un. That joke writes itself, and you choose to go the actual demonizing route. It's not even that you can't still make Trump look bad using the red button. There are 1.5 billion ways to do so, yet you choose the one that contradicts a character trait you established earlier. This shows that you can't even keep a character that's this bare bones and written with so little care consistent, but at this point, why am I surprised? You haven't cared to give us any interesting insight to Trump's presidency yet, so why start now? I am 5.5 minutes into the show, and I already want to die. I want this show to be over. I've never had something I've been this regretful in reviewing. Mr. Military Man gives Trump a boost of inspiration to write a speech, and we head back to the boardroom of Trump's, and I swear to God, the humor only gets worse. Literally nothing in this boardroom is funny. It's not clever, it's just the same shit we've seen over and over thus far. There is one new thing we get, though. A joke about how Trump's father never loved him. And it's played for laughs. Why is this funny? There's no punchline, there's barely a setup, it's just, hey, let's laugh at Trump's neglectful father. What is humor anymore? I thought Colbert was a comedian. We then cut to Trump asking Mike Pence what he should do for him and his wife's anniversary. Hey, they remembered this was a plot point. And finally we get a joke that's specific to a different politician than Trump. It's still not good, as the only joke they tell us is that Pence is a religious obsessed nutjob, and that seems to be it. But it's refreshing to see that they at least had some material left to wring out of that sponge. Anyway, Trump and Pence come to the conclusion they should send their wives out to dinner for the anniversary gift. I do genuinely have a problem with how this whole episode is structured. Typically, when you have two plot points needing to take place at the same time, you typically put as much focus on both ends with maybe a little leeway to add to your main plot point if the episode calls for it, as that gives the side plot a reason to exist. You also don't typically force both plots on one character, as you don't want to have to balance all of that in one go. On top of that, having separate plot points allows you to tie in everything at the end with the different adventures. It's more satisfying that way. This episode is putting all of the stress onto one character, and it makes having the two plots seem really pointless. But whatever, that's probably the least of my problems with this. Down there with the janky animation the show has and the obnoxious voice acting from everyone except Trump. I would go off on those, but if I went off on literally all of my problems, this review would probably be an hour long. Trump goes back to talk to Don and Eric, and Junior explains that the best way to boost Trump's image is by having them go on television to look like idiots in comparison to them. Did you think I was joking when I said that this show has to treat the entire Trump line as if they're socially inept retards who look dumber than Trump in comparison? Because I wasn't. That's actually an important part to this episode. Trump warns them not to talk about Russia because that's a joke we need to check off the easy Trump joke bingo card. And what do? They go to Sean Hannity and talk about Russia. Look, I'm running out of things to talk about, and unlike this show, I don't really want to repeat myself, so I'll jump through like half the episode. Not that we're really missing on a lot anyway, we just get a bunch of quick jokes that sometimes vaguely tie into the plot itself, but typically don't. The Sean Hannity and Russia jokes don't really tie into anything, nor are they really funny, as the joke is Don and Eric screw everything up. And the Ted Cruz joke is just kind of there. I'm not entirely sure what kind of satire of Cruz they were going for. I guess he's a dork? I'm not sure. And Trump's constant need to list things off from New York is just... These scenes just exist in a void of space to tell a joke without a punchline or satirical feel to them. And maybe that's the best way I can put this. It's mocking. It's just really, really childish mocking. Like when you hold your nose and start spouting off "look at me's" in an attempt to impersonate your opposition. And the more that I think about it, that's a lot of this episode. The entire thing is just childish mocking. A lot of these scenes could be taken out and nothing would be lost. The boardroom meetings, anything regarding Don and Eric, the war room, none of this really helps alongside the episode. It just distracts from it and shows us that when it comes to Trump, Colbert refuses to actually try. Like, I guess I can give the anniversary scenes a pass, considering that's the entire side plot, though as we're going to find out by the end of it all, it doesn't really amount to anything either. Actually, let's talk about what happens in the anniversary plot. Generally, after Pence and Trump set up their wives out for dinner, it's a disaster, and Mrs. Trump gets ready to move back to New York. This breaks Trump's heart as he gets ready to do his State of the Union speech while dealing with that. Meanwhile, Don and Eric had another project in the works, putting the front of the fire truck at the podium so Donald Trump can do the State of the Union inside a fire truck. This is probably the closest they got to a joke that actually works. The premise is so out there, so insane, so crazy that it sets up for so many good jokes. But as we know by now, that's asking far too much. There's no point to this joke. If no one is playing the straight man and questioning why Trump is in a fire truck, the joke just becomes Trump is doing the State of the Union in a fire truck. You set this up only to do nothing with it. At this point, I'm frustrated, annoyed, and disappointed where I had zero expectations. Fuck this episode. Fuck this show. I know they say you shouldn't judge a show based on merely the first episode. On any other day, with any other show, I'd agree to that. Hell, I canceled a review of the first Bob's Burger episode for that very same reason. But there is no reason why I would assume something so politically driven like this wouldn't keep the exact same level of not trying that we saw here. The jokes are half-baked, the plot is only half there, the characters didn't even try, the animation sucks ass, the voice acting is grating, and there is only one redeemable quality the show had to offer, being the man playing Trump. How or why the show is greenlit is well beyond me. As I said, I don't even like Trump, and I can see this for the hollow shell and the shallow puddle this show is. I don't see this thing lasting more than a season. I barely see it lasting 5 episodes.